Hello and welcome to the State of the Industry panel for D4 Tabletop Creative Conference. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so glad we get to do this, and we are joined by some fantastic panelists, which I let them introduce themselves. I'm Ross Thompson, I'm marketing manager at the Op. I'm moderating this panel, and we'll popcorn it over to Ivan.
My name is Ivan Van Norman. I do things on the internet. I'm taking your thing, V Dave. I'm taking it. I do things and write things on the internet.
But it's cooler when you do it. Now I need a new thing.
Nah, lies. I do enjoy making games, though. I have 2 different publishing companies. That's how much I enjoy making games. One of them with my old buddies at Critical Role, so operate Darrington Press over there, and then my old hat, but very comfortable hat, Hunters Entertainment, where we go and make licensed games and heavy metal fantasy role-playing games all the time.
That's great, thank you. And Amber?
I'm Amber Cook. I am the marketing director at Roll20. It's an online virtual tabletop for playing role-playing games and now some party games as well. I work in mostly brand strategy, and I'm also on the American Tabletop Awards.
That's great. Mandy?
Hi, bonjour tout le monde. I'm Mandy Hutchinson, and if you haven't figured it out already, I'm the lone Canadian on the panel. Yay, go Canada! You'll probably know me from The Dice Tower, the podcast and video. I'm also on Salt and Sass on Twitch. I have my own channel, To Die For Games, on YouTube, and you'll probably just see me dabbling in just a little bit of everything. So there you go.
She's a board game queen.
It's the flower.
Awesome. And then B-Dave?
B-Dave Walters. I say words about things. Apparently my whole entire career is just trying to be like Ivan. He started doing horror games. I started doing horror games. He started game designing. I started game designing. I am the shadow to Ivan's Peter Pan.
Are you calling me your Tim Curry? Because I've been following Tim Curry's career my whole life.
You are simultaneously inspirational and aspirational. I do not look nearly as good in fishnets as either of you, though. So that's yeah.
It's okay. You were the man of 10 million projects. That's how I know you.
We're both playing the game on hard mode. It's fine. It's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Hard mode. It's like hard mode's for people who like hanging out. You're Dark Souls right now. It's what you're doing.
All right, Mister. I've run 2 game production companies. Stop us, Ross. We'll do this love in.
I realize
I haven't seen him in too long. Stop us.
That's why we're doing this, though. It's so good to be able to get to hang out. Like, I wish this could be in person. But we are doing what we're doing. So it gets to be a virtual show. So right now in the industry, there's a lot going on, right? We've been dealing with COVID for the last year. All these things are virtual, so we're all living in our own little box. But at the same time, game sales are still happening. People are playing more games than ever. People are designing more games than ever. They're getting more coverage across the board. Discoverability has been really good. And we're seeing a lot of this kind of like normalization of nerddom, right? Whether it's in pop culture, we're seeing more of our IPs with Dungeons and Dragons getting larger reach. And at the same time, there's more game companies popping up all the time. And it's just, there's a lot of explosion in games right now, which is really cool. While at the same time, we're seeing more content creation on TikTok and on Twitch. And we're seeing more of these live plays with like actual plays going on. And it's really neat to see kind of how that's all going. So to kind of throw it out, how did the industry change like in the last year, and how are things looking in 2021 right now, like as we deal with COVID and with things looking like they're going to open up? There we go.
It's weird because all I keep thinking about is like when we all kind of got into this space together, and it was kind of like the rebirth of board games, right? And everyone's like, oh, the board game boom, and it was rising back up, and we kind of all saw that 10 years ago at this point, when it just was a huge resurgence, right? And I keep thinking like the board game industry is in that like young adult stage of its life, right? Where it's past like it's kind of stumbling, falling on its face, learning to walk, and now it's getting its big boy pants. It's what it's doing. It's what at least what it feels like. Like you said, there's a lot of media attention. There's just a lot of, in general, people want to participate. It's not just a niche industry anymore. It's now, I would call it like an early majority industry where a lot of people are coming into it and acknowledging it and personalizing it. And then COVID happened, and it was kind of like, I'm going to keep using the kid analogy. It's kind of like we got the flu for a little bit. Like we all took a step back, but we were still working. We were all staying at home, but we were still staying busy. And I think all of us, more than anyone, this industry is a remote-based industry anyway. So most people were covered to continue creating and developing pretty easily because we're all used to working from home anyway, right? Play testing has been affected significantly, yes. But other than that, everyone's creating at full speed, at least from what my understanding is. Do you all feel the same way?
Yeah, Amber?
Creating, yeah, it just flows so much differently right now. I mean, for me, it's like everybody's playing online, and I think that's really exciting because I've been working in digital for the last couple of years, and so it's kind of amazing to watch that blow up and see how. I think there's a couple of things. There's some people who are just keeping their game groups together, right? So they're finding different ways to do it, and then I think there's other people who have figured out that games are a really nice way to socialize because you can sit here, and while we all might have a really great time talking on a topic and in Zoom for an hour, like that's not necessarily what I want to do on a Friday night with my friends. And so having like, a light game that y'all can play together or something that's kind of an icebreaker and helps like get you into that vibe is really nice. So I think people are finding it more as a medium for socializing now.
I know for myself, so this is not my day job. So I'm a teacher by day, a gamer by night. And a lot of that was in the office. So that was a really big change for me to adjust coming home from work, doing the home thing, and now we can do it all from home. In a weird way, I've gotten closer to my colleagues in the board gaming industry because I'm a Canadian on a team of Americans, so they can all kind of see each other, and I'm kind of out in the cold. But lately, Miss Suzanne Sheldon, who I'm sure you'll see at some point in one of the panels, we've been playing more games than ever because we've been able to do it virtually. So I definitely think you're going to see an increase with everybody doing that. And I've had people say I've never really played board games, but Mandy, I know you're a board gamer. Can you show me some sites that I can play? Do you know what I mean? So I definitely think it's not good in the way that it happened, but it's good that it's bringing people together.
And Suze is such a leader in playing games online anyway.
Oh,
like she's the person who, when I started working in digital, I was like looking to her because she knew every app that was out there. She kept like this. She might still keep it, that giant spreadsheet of all the board game apps. Yeah.
She still has it. We started a show, Apptastic, to literally do gaming online. So yeah, still doing it.
Us as humans, we find a barrier and we find a way around it, right? Like we want to play games. If 2020 and 2021 has told us anything, it's that we love playing games. And if given the capacity, then if we're told you cannot game physically together anymore, we will find other ways to do it.
Yeah, I want to be sensitive to the fact that I know the last year to 15 months has been difficult for everybody and horrifically awful for some. But professionally, in my corner of the universe was fantastic as a content creator because like Ivan was saying, it was easy to switch to doing this from home and people wanted it and people wanted to consume it. I think we're going to see the birth over the next 3 to 5 years of a number of COVID babies, of both literal COVID babies and also works of art of like astonishing depth and complexity because people had time. There are going to be some amazing books and albums and screenplays and movies that hit a few years from now that were all birthed out of this time when everybody had a lot of time and a lot of desire to see something else. And also from a business standpoint, it's been good because it allowed us to assemble teams of people that we couldn't really have done before and arrange casts and arrange events and arrange cooperative groups. Even with our development of Into the Motherlands we've been working on, we're all over the country. With my main show, Black Dice Society, Mark Mears in Canada, Tanya's in Chicago, DJ's in Texas. And although we were doing Heads and Boxes content before that, it definitely was kind of looked down on. It's like, no, you get around the table, you have to. And now we don't have to. And because we don't have to, it opens up a lot more options.
Definitely lowered the barrier for some of the like what was considered standard content,
Mhm.
at least as far as online goes, because everyone was very forgiving of what the situations and the parameters were, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If if you had told me you were going to be doing, Into the Motherlands and shooting it remote with a bunch of boxing heads, 2 years ago,
Yep.
I would have said, okay, that's nice,
Yeah.
right? And it would have been fine, but it wouldn't have had the same kind of pizzazz that it did having things together. It's going to be interesting if and when people do start shooting together again, because I have a feeling I have that weird bittersweet taste in the mouth that it feels like it is right now, where you're like, it's cool that it's happening, but it also just doesn't feel right.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's to kind of get in that, right? Like it's interesting because as we've seen, and media, I don't want to bug about like Black Tie Society, you've got all that going on, which is just amazing how that's been rock the tank top, right? Like, and that's
Product placement.
Totally. And there's so many shows that are doing that, but like I think back to almost like D&D Live and a couple of those things where it's like there we all in person, all watching these shows around the table. And even at Gen Con, we're there we are, we're hanging out, we're recording and doing all these things, but everything went to online for the last year. And as we look to go back, right, what is that? There's so much content, there's so many people that love the online space, like, right, Amber? Like,
well, and I think like it also, for me, it's made me question the value of the things in my life in general, and that includes the tabletop space. So what's the value of my local game store? What's the value of all the time I spend away from home at conventions and at business meetings? And what's the value of also getting all this time at home right now? Because I think with gaming, there's so much love in the hobby, right? Like everybody loves what they're doing. Like I don't know many people who aren't here because they want to be. And a lot of people fight really hard to be here. So sometimes I think it makes it harder from a business perspective to really be objective when you're looking at like, what was my ROI on going to Gen Con last year? What's my ROI on going to that little hobby show where like all my favorite people are, and it's a little slower pace, so I can spend a little more time like, hanging out and actually playing some games. And I think that for me, I'm having, I've got a 3-year-old at home. I'm trying to figure out like, how much time do I really want to be spending away from him? And also like, there's so much more of this I can do from home now. So if I don't need Gen Con to be like a 16 to 20 hour marathon every single day of Gen Con, because I can do some of that in the normal time away from Gen Con, then hopefully I can have a more positive. I hope that distance is giving us all a chance to reapproach things and be a little bit more intentional with all of our efforts.
A lot of publishers who are big enough to run things like P&Ls, right? Profit and losses. Sorry.
I think we're all big enough for that, Ivan.
Yeah, okay. Well,
we're all big enough for that.
We're all big enough for profit. I mean, no one is too small for a profit and loss report. You're right. Thank you. But the people who are paying attention to that kind of stuff, like you said, ROI is the people who are in it and do because they want to stay in it, need to look at how the much money you're spending versus how much money you're bringing in. I guarantee a bunch of them have made some startling discoveries about just how
game stores too. Yeah.
Game stores too. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine Paul Butler, who's a retailer, and he was talking about how like he's got a huge half of his store is event space. Right. And so like how profitable is it to run the store without the event space versus with the event space? And that kind of like A/B testing that you usually think of for tech spaces is suddenly happening in this time of, it's obviously an altered state, right? It's not a genuine A/B, but like it's happening. And it's, what do you do when you go back to events, and like what part of it has value for your community? And it's really interesting.
And how do you go back into that space and do it with integrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. It's like there's going to be a lot of integrity checks here as people come back into the space about what's more important, keeping people safe or making money, or taking care of your fellow human being.
It'd be very well. It's like everything's polarizing right now, and I think like people are leaning in one way or another, like space or money.
It's going to be slow going, though, even though cons are coming back. I mean, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before they look anything like what they used to.
If they ever do
Yeah,
again.
if they ever do again. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long time before I'm out bopping around in San Diego without a mask on. Like, I mean, a long time. And I never really got con crud, but still, you know, that it's just, you're right. In me, I'm like ultimate extrovert. Like my moment of peak power in life is that moment in front of Comic-Con when you can look out front of the convention center and there's just people in all directions, human beings as far as you can see. Like that's when I go full Super Saiyan, and I don't want that. If I don't want that, I know a lot of people don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah. So on that kind of same thing, to kind of switch more to the, I guess we can go to the P&L based thing, right? But like game sales are up right now, right? And we're like, I know with the op, like when COVID hit and we had our games in Target and those things there, we saw a huge growth. And then now like we saw a couple of Kickstarters break the biggest record ever in the last year. And that's only continuing to move forward. And we're seeing more games across the board get ready and prep for more of these things. At the same time, puzzles are who would have guessed puzzles are like, you can't even keep them in stock right across the board, and you're seeing more of this. So, which is kind of interesting. I guess this really isn't the hardcore panel for that, but like one of the problems we're seeing right now is that there is logistics. There aren't enough boats to take the stuff from the manufacturers and get them over here.
Literally ran into that with something this week. It's like, yeah, you could get it out of Taiwan for pennies on a dollar. It's just the shipping is 10 times more and might take 4 months. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No, every boat ever is occupied, and it's not even, because that's the problem is that it was a race to the bottom for those logistics companies for years, right? And so all it took was a little tap on the infrastructure and logistics sides to start breaking things down. So even though the demand for logistics is so high, there's actually been a lot of companies that just have to wreck boats because they can't afford to keep them up.
Yeah, there was a Kickstarter. This is kind of a random thing, but there was a Kickstarter that ended up taking a photo of the evergreen, right, that was stuck in the canal, and they were like, our games are actually right on that crate, right? And you're just like,
and it's still there.
Yeah, so
still there.
But as we kind of look at that, do we, as like a future trend thing, do we think game sales are going to keep going or playing? And like, Mandy, what do you think?
I mean, I think people, and I'm using this term very loosely here. I think that people have a little bit more disposable income. Like I know for myself, I'm not driving places, I'm not eating out. And so that I can afford to be like, oh, I can get that game. I'm backing so many things on Kickstarter, even with the Canadian dollar, which I normally wouldn't, but I got a little extra money. I'm playing more video games than I would. Like, I just feel that right now it's surging because we're limited on the types of activities we can do, and games are fun, it keeps the family together and kids entertained.
And you're investing in your future of entertainment on Kickstarter.
Okay, yes. And I think that yes, board games and puzzles and things like that the sales will increase. I just don't think it will be as exponential as it's been now with COVID, once things kind of go back to quote unquote normal, which is who knows what that looks like.
I think the high watermark is going to come down from where it is, but I think it's still going to trend high because now people have that habit. People have formed game nights that we all get together with your buddies from high school, your girlfriends, and like these are like things people do that are now valid, expenditures of your time and resources and effort. So I think it's going to keep going. I think I heard a quote very early in this that said, I'm paraphrasing, that it was after you rewatch your favorite TV show for the 5th time and reread your favorite book, remember that in your darkest hour, you turn to artists, and that's still true with all of this and creativity and things. And now the people have opened their eyes, like you can't unring that bell. You don't just buy one army and then four.
Called out. Don't look at the shelf over there.
Yeah, no, like please. Don't look at the miniatures.
I recommend blurring your background.
It's too late.
Or just make it dark.
I mean, I think that one of the things that, Ross, you talked about, USA Opoly or the Op had games in Target, and I heard a lot of publishers talking about how well they did if they had mass market distribution. And I think that some companies did really well because they were ready to host online play in a variety of ways. Like they had been preparing for that. And what I'm kind of interested in, and I don't have a lot of data here, is like what about the companies that didn't have mass market distribution? They were really leaning into like friendly local game stores and the typical distribution model, and whether or not those games have sold as well and those publishers are thriving is in the same way. Because I see that sales are up for a lot of things. I think consumers are willing to spend a lot more money, but I think it's harder to get in front of them if you don't have like a real solid plan.
For an analog industry, like we all have definitely, if you haven't been online or haven't been in front of either your customers or the retailers in an online way, yeah, I could definitely see.
It's hard to catch up now. Like you were talking about like the kid analogy, right? Like, you know, some of us have grown up and some of us are like, you know, have like some of I'm worried about some of the old school publishers that I have a lot of love for that I think didn't really keep up with like modern marketing or modern consumer communications and relied on the events model,
yeah.
right? And if they just don't have a network that way, I think that we're going to see a lot of them struggle.
Well, it's kind of interesting you bring that up. I'm moderating, but I want to roll in here too a little bit, right?
Please.
So one of the things that I saw kind of in the hobby space really pick up was the amount of 3D printing, right? And there were a bunch of miniature games, and I guess we could do RPGs too, that really saw this growth in sharing STLs and getting out there with, hey, look, we're building these games and these things, and kind of an explosion there. But at the same time, I have two friends that do resin printing bases, right? And they do terrain pieces, and they did not do well during the last year because they relied on going to Epicon and going to Gen Con and going to these shows, right? So they've been having a really hard time with trying.
Mandy, have you like, no, because you deal with a lot of publishers with all of the, I mean, you're doing so much game coverage. Have you heard from fewer of those kinds of people?
No, it's been increased actually.
I mean,
now there are different reasons for that, and I don't know if we want to get into all of those tonight.
But, go for it, man.
Okay, but I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
you're good.
Due to, you know, there was the Black Lives Matter movement, which is important, and I think it opened some people's eyes to maybe some of the lack of content creators of a certain background or certain backgrounds that were, you know, in the main industry that you would see all the time. You weren't seeing these people. You'd see, you know, someone like me, or you'd see someone like Suzanne, or, you know, the splattering of people that were common, but there were lots of people trying to do that and they weren't getting that exposure. So I feel like companies who maybe I didn't speak to, they kind of, you know, hey, we had a kind of in passing relationship. All of a sudden now I'm getting, you know, games and things to cover. So I'm not saying that's the sole reason, but I do think that's part of it.
Well, they're probably relying on you too. Like they don't have other means for digital marketing. You probably are able to, I mean.
And I do a lot of it, right? I'm with Dice Tower, and Dice Tower's fairly well known, you know, and I have my own channel and I do Twitch and I do all kinds of things. So in that respect, that's another reason why people wanted me to kind of take a look at their stuff, because I'm always out there. I'm on social media a lot. So even if I'm not doing video content, I'm taking pictures of it.
To your point, we very much came into vogue in like the last 9 months or so. Though. Like, I mean,
right?
you know, you don't have to feel bad about
Right?
that. That is true. I'm like, we were here the whole entire time. It's just the world was like, oh, you guys like stuff? We were like, we do, actually. Yeah, we have opinions. Yeah, so this definitely had a significant impact,
Right.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Amber, yes, I've been seeing an increase.
That's great. I mean, well, I just figured also some of those publishers are like, they probably can't create as much content in-house. Like they might not have a video producer, or they might not have like the you know, the breadth of staff to create some of that. And so, you know, any content creators become infinitely more valuable, especially ones that are, you know, have reach. Like you've had reach for a long time. So
on the Hunter side of things, we converted our entire events budget that we would normally be putting into going and attending cons and started a Twitch channel.
Okay.
Like just literally took that entire budget that we normally would spend every year for hotels, flights, attending, and just put it all into programming. And, you know, got a producer, attached it, Knoxweiler Burf, who's now running our stuff, and then had Markia McCarty, who now just GMs and hosts all of our games. And that was honestly, it was the best way to spend that money. not only in you know, the hey, we have the money, what are we going to spend it on? Like, okay, let's start a Twitch channel. Like, that is a choice that would have been good in outside of a pandemic, but it took the lack of events for us to actually look at that and say, yes, that there's value in building that brand. And now the people know the brand outside of, you know.
So Ivan, do you see that continuing?
I mean, yeah, so that's the thing, right? I mean, why start a Twitch channel and then turn it off once things start happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, you're right. There is a world in which you'd be like, well, that was fun. Just turn that off now. But no, I think, I mean, I think Amber said this a little bit to the point too. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be staying online, and a lot of the things that have come out of the virtual cons that we've seen in the last couple of years is that it has connected people who don't necessarily like going to events, or, you know, can't experience it because they are dealing, you know, with difficulties or just comfort levels that don't allow them to experience that kind of event all the time. And now they can't. Right.
Well,
because
and talk about diversity in the gaming space. Like,
right.
you want to like shake things up, you know, stop putting all of the conventions in the middle of the country for people who can get childcare for 4 days and want to travel to the Midwest. I mean, I love the Midwest, but you know, it's it's definitely a look. And I love going to PAX Unplugged and seeing that something it's just different. You like have something in the Mid-Atlantic, it just feels different than it does when it's in you know, Columbus or, you know.
Yeah, not to bust anybody out, but I'm aware of a major convention that was like that paid a friend of mine as a consultant. It was like, how do we make this more accessible? Here's 10 things. And they're like, but we don't want to do any of those things. You know, and you're like,
wow.
Well, here we are.
Right.
Thank you for playing. I'll just take my check and go. Yeah, that's basically what happened. Yeah.
Gosh.
You know what was really cool, Ivan? We had Kids on Bikes was on the front page of Twitch today. I think Twitch is like, you know, to several of these points, like there's more content creation, there's more people playing games online and streaming it, and like Twitch has acknowledged that. Like they've one of the games that Marquia's in for Roll20 like is Kids on Bikes, and so they put that on the front page of Twitch. But also part of that is that they're spending more time like thinking about tabletop. And they're also trying to highlight creators of color, which is just, you know, wonderful. And so we've been able to say, here are some shows that we're affiliated with that you can promote.
I mean, the good news is that, I mean, yeah, and Twitch as a business has always been there, you know, obviously for the tabletop space as well too, but it has been very good to kind of still get them out of that, like that kind of classic core creator content, where it's like single person playing a game or playing a board game or whatever, and getting back into that kind of brand-based content. Like, I mean, if I've been shocked by any brand who is really rallying for the tabletop community right now, it's like freaking TikTok, man. You know?
Yeah, I
like,
noticed that.
They have been, I mean, they reached out to us and they were
They
like,
reached out to a lot of people.
yeah. And they're, you know, granted, we have Mr. Rick Ashley too, Ankley. What am I calling Rick Ashley?
He's never going to give you up there.
He's never going to never give me up. No, but our buddy Big Rick, he's always been out there. He was one of the frontiers in that space, and it's been really cool to kind of like see that company go in there and be like, okay, we got you verified. All right, guess what? We got an event lined up. Let's play. Let's do this, you know? And it's just been cool to see them participate in that way. Yeah, and like a lot of other ones don't.
Yeah, I think what's kind of cool on the TikTok thing is that there's been a huge explosion of a diverse amount of creators that aren't the same faces we're used to seeing.
Yep.
And the content is fresh. It's not an unboxing. It's not a talking head. It's not just here's a play in this. It's super new. And every day my Twitter feed is filled with new TikTok posts and things of just silly things in games, right? And it's just been really, really, really nice. And I think that's, I mean, kind of like the theme of this panel has kind of been like content-based stuff for that, but it's been really neat. And I think like the new way we're looking at tabletop games isn't going to be this just cool, here it is, here's my unboxing, here's my thoughts on this game. It's how do we engage with it? What are these fun thoughts behind it? It doesn't always need to be an 11-minute video or an hour-long thing, but it can be 30 seconds, 15 seconds. right? So, which is really cool. But at the same time, you know, the kind of on the other side of that, we're seeing these massive games that are happening too, where they're RPG based things or they're board games where it's much larger and people are watching it and they're enjoying it like they would a show and they're binging it. And that's huge for games too. Like B-Dave.
You stream Twilight Imperium, right? And yes, of course.
I got my mug and my mug on my mug.
Yeah. So on that, like, how has that been, B-Dave?
Product placement. It's been great. Having launched a lot of content during this particularly unstable time, but Black Dice Society has definitely been the pinnacle. I mean, we're 6 episodes in, we're seeing huge results, the likes of which many programs I've been a part of never reached, and others it took a very long time to. So it's been fantastic. Having the opportunity to reach out, resonate. Again, corporate partnerships are more readily available right now. I think by now, even the not smart companies have realized that, like, that's really where it's at. If you can partner with genuine influencers, and by genuine influencers, I mean people that actually like your product, actually engage with your product, because everybody can spot at 1,000 paces. So if you're like, sorry, just had to wet my whistle with a little monster, you know, like, everybody knows when that's not real. But when people are coming from a place of love, that's how you cultivate the community, because you have people that love it too. Like, I played Ravenloft back in the day, but it was never like my jam. Like, I never just loved Ravenloft. But now that we're doing our show, people are coming out of the woodwork that are like OG fans, and seeing them so excited to see something they love come back again. It's just kind of like a self-fulfilling love-in. I will just say, though, all things being equal, shout out to Ivan Van Norman, who elevated the entire genre of tabletop streaming out of something that's just geeks around a table playing a game into something that was really, like, immersive and fantastic. None of us would be where we are right now if not for him. Shout out to my homie.
Accept your compliment.
Let it happen. Don't fight it. Shh, don't fight it. Yeah.
It's honestly, though, I mean, it took people who had checkbooks, though, to take those risks as well too. And we had to fight for that in every step along the way. But yeah, no, I mean, immersive content should be immersive, and that's one of the joys of. That's actually really, honestly, the only joy that I still continue to see from getting back to a proper studio again is going back to make that kind of, like, deeply immersive experience that's hard to get unless you're, like, kissing your webcam, right?
Exactly.
So getting in there.
I think it's kind of an interesting thing, though, because I think on a macro scale, the reason why people consume tabletop content, when I mean tabletop content in this sense, I mean actual plays of whatever they are, be it Twilight Imperium, be it, you know, D&D or whatever, is they want to feel like they're another person at the table. That this is all happening and you all are right here experiencing this with us. That is, on a macro scale, it. But there is a substrata of that, which is far more difficult and far more expensive, that it is the scratching the exact same itch that television did, which Dread did that. You know, Where Life Frontier did that. When people were, like, chopping through walls with hatchets and we're all screaming and stuff, nobody wanted to be at that table. We didn't want to be at that table, but they still wanted to watch it happen. And I think we'll get back to that, because right now, no one's doing that.
Yeah, no one's doing that. And even, I mean, and that's kind of the good news and the joy of what Critical Role continues to provide every day is actual human interaction and really immersive. They've been abiding by all of the very stringent COVID laws in California for shooting inside of studios, and they've been adhering to it, and they have made some amazing content out of that time. Marisha has been amazing in being able to take her team and be like, okay, well, this we can't do, so what can we do, and moving that forward into actually, like, making stuff and continuing to promote good content to good people and get the nerds all rustled up with fun stuff. So, you know, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be in this space right now. And I know for people who aren't doing it and are looking into it and they're like, wow, I really want to be involved. One, do it, give it a shot, like, chase those dreams.
Do it 100%. Do it
all day. Thinking about
write that thing,
make it happen.
film that thing.
And at the same time, it is, but there's a lot, but the thing that you can take away from it is there's a lot of people to learn from, right? There's so many people out there who are doing amazing, wonderful things. These are all lessons that have been learned, and you can absorb that knowledge and information on their behalf, so that when you go out with that first step forward, you can go out in like full bodied, right? Like there, I remember, Tabletop Season 3, like Will Wheaton's Tabletop Season 3 on Indiegogo. I was researching how to make these campaigns work, right? Like I'd only run a few very smaller ones, and now I was tasked with this giant.
Back in the day, take a drink. Sorry.
I know, right? Like back in the day, that's how old that I just showed my career age a little bit in that process. But the thing is, like, none of those resources were available. None of it online. Like no one knew what a crowdfunding consultant was. None of that stuff existed at all. Now, go find top 10 lists of mistakes you shouldn't make on Kickstarter on every single platform of your choice, right? So I'm just saying, learn from it, because it's out there for you to take.
And that's like a good place. Well, they'd have the 5 minutes up sign if we were in person right now. But that's definitely a good thing to bring up. Is there is so much information out there, which is kind of why I'm glad we're doing this, right? So it's all this information is there, the people that are there, and you find them, follow them, be a part of it. The community is so immersive right now. Just if you want to find on Twitter and on TikTok and on Twitch and on Facebook, and just watch, consume, and create, go do it, do the thing. So as we kind of wrap it up, feel free to share who you are, where they could find you, bump a project, do a thing. Remember, this will be live on June 5th and 6th. So we'll do that, and we'll go the reverse. So B Dave, kick us off.
It me. Yes. B Dave Walters. +1 everything Ivan said, do it. My DMs are open at B Dave Walters. If you got a question, feel free to. Don't say something silly. I will roast you. But if you have a genuine question, hit me up. I will help you. If this is June 5th and 6th, our Into the Motherlands RPG Kickstarter should be live. So hopefully you can find that on my Twitter all over the internet. Hopefully it's the rage of everyone. Take a look. Support us if you can. And Black Dice Society, Thursdays at 4, D&D, Twitch, and YouTube. And thank you for having me.
Always glad. Mandy?
Oh my goodness. Okay, take a seat, everyone. It's a lot of stuff here. I'm so sorry. So, you can find me all over social media under the Board Gaming Pinup Girl. Instagram and Twitter are the big ones. I also have my own channel, To Die For Games. I'm on the Dice Tower, and you'll mostly hear the sultry sounds of myself and Miss Suzanne Sheldon on the podcast every second week. And I feel like I'm missing one. Salt and Sass on Twitch. I play some video games, but mostly board games and digital games. So find me in any of those places. And thank you so much for having me. It has been a delight.
Awesome. Always good to have you too. Amber?
I'm Amber Cook. I'm 100 Games Project on Twitter and Instagram and my blog. And mostly I'm doing work behind the scenes at Roll20. So if I could pitch anything, it would probably be our mobile app, which by the time this comes out will probably be an open beta. So your character sheets will be in your hand when you go back to play in person, and keep your same characters from your online games all winter, COVID long, back at the table.
Awesome.
I'm so excited for that, Amber, by the way. So excited.
Me too.
And then Ivan?
Yeah. My name's Ivan Van Norman. I'm Hydra_Lord on all the socials. Yeah, again, if we're talking about June 6th when this is going out, that likely means that Okatoa, Darrington Press's first board game, will probably be out in the world and doing things, and likely at a friendly local game store near you or very, very close to it, but definitely on the critroll.com website. I'm a lot more behind the scenes nowadays than in front of the camera, but I'm just loving seeing all of my friends and content creators out there making stuff, and yeah, just go out there and enjoy this wonderful, lovely hobby and participate and be a good person.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for everybody at home, thank you so much for watching and being a part of D4. You can find more panels and talks on the YouTube channel, on the website, and be sure to check it out. Thank you so
AoE
much.
stun. Got him.
Oh, AoE stun. Look at that. Oh, it's all good. Well, thank you for being a part of D4. I'm glad to do the panel. I'm just gonna laugh now at that ate up. So all good, cool. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Got him.
Thanks, Rob.
Go.